Welcome back, everybody. At the start of today, we had an interview where Stork said he wanted to give Legend a birthday present. He wanted to send him home early. And our interviewer, Ayul, said, does that mean you're going to lose or you're going to win fast? He said, of course, no matter what, he's going to send him home early. It might be that he loses fast here because StarTale having a pretty advantageous position right now and are already up 2-0 with this matchup. So looking pretty rough for Samsung right now to make a comeback, but we've seen crazier things before in this tournament.
Yeah, and when you have a guy that's coming up next as your third player for StarTale-yoe, which, by the way, I love. Him coming in third, Light, is the guy I'm talking about. Him coming in third and playing for your team, regardless of if you're down 2-0 or up 2-0 or it's 1-1, he's the guy that's going to be the momentum swinger and going to swing that hammer. But first off here for Samsung Galaxy Con, we got Deer, the Protoss player. He's had a lot of results in the past. He's definitely a very good player. He's shown some great games so far in Pro League, but can he defeat this Zerg?
That's the question, man. I like this guy. He's a great player. He's got a really sick ratio in Pro League, as you guys can see, and he's 9-7 versus Zerg. This, of course, all comes from like a long time ago, old history. But this guy was once the best player in the world, had some of the best PvZ we've ever seen. He fell off. He had his moment on Mouse. Now back on the Kespa team. And I'm glad he was able to kind of settle things here, find a new home, played an incredible match versus Hero. But there's no doubt that Life is the favorite here.
Yep. Definitely would agree with you on that one. Here is Life.
Yep. He's 1-0 versus Protoss in Pro League. He's played 12 matches. Playing a lot of those, on his
for someone who doesn't know a lot about Life, they may come into this one and say, "Oh, what? He's only 6'6", he's 50%." This guy won the World Championship against a lot of Terrans, a bunch of Protosses as well. This guy is very, very strong.
Yeah.
To say the least.
He's insanely strong, man. And at a time, people were saying his ZVP was unbeatable. Right now, it looks like all of his matchups are unbeatable.
Yeah,
He's
man.
a sick player. Crushed Flash in the SSL. And the map we're going into for this one is Foxtrot. So, spawning locations are important here. We'll have to talk a little bit about that as we get in game. We don't know what they're going to be just yet. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. StarTale looks to get a 3-0 here. A clean sweep. Get those indicator points. But Samsung's fighting for dear life here. No pun intended. Let's go into game number 3.
Up here in the top right in the red, the Protoss player for Samsung Galaxy Con, it is Deer.
Into the bottom left in blue. StarTale Zerg, it's Life. The master of Zerglings. People called him the Zergling, actually, in Korea for a while.
Very fitting nickname. He loves to use that unit. One of the most mobile units in the game. They are really, really good for counterattacking, something that Life loves to do. If you're a guy that's going to play against Life, you've got to be ready for counterattacks at any point in the game. It could be Lings, it could be Banelings, it could be a bunch of different things, even Roaches in the mix. Life has done it all. Definitely got to look out for this guy. He's sneaky. He's definitely sneaky.
Well, saying it could be possible he could get, even though they lost twice, 3 wins in a row here to turn things around on this birthday today. What that sign was saying. But, on this map, third base is pretty, fairly easy to take for the Zerg, but the problem is that it's close to the Protoss' natural. The Protoss can walk across the map pretty quickly. We saw the same spawning locations yesterday, except reversed. In a PvZ, and things went disastrously for Dark in that matchup.
I'm glad you actually mentioned that match, because that was the one that Dark, he didn't really realize what was coming his way, and he just got smashed by a 2-base all-in. And I wonder if Deer looks at that game and he's like, I'm going up against Life. Why don't I just try to do the same thing? It's the same map, same spawns. I can do this too. I would not be surprised if he went for something like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the third base, it's like, it's not It's not incredibly difficult to take, but it is hard to spread creep towards. If you want to take the third base that's closer, you have to kill the rocks. In order to kill the rocks, you have to spend resources. We have seen a few very brave Zergs try to take that third base without killing the rocks. Sometimes with successful results, sometimes with disastrous results, killing the rocks later after the third. In this case, Life is actually going to go double hatch before Pool, which ends up being great for him because Deer went for just a straight Nexus burst into Gateway. So he's going to be totally safe here, totally fine, and makes a ton of extra drones along with this as well.
Really interesting build out of Life. He didn't get that scout off, right? I didn't miss a drone or anything. He's just going for double hatch before Pool.
Blind. Team's up 2-0. It's a good map to go Nexus first as a Protoss. Don't see too many cannon rushes on this map, so I think it's a fair choice. Gets that Pool up now, getting that extra drone in the Overlord. A little bit of probe harass here from Deer, just trying to get into Life's head. Yep. Normally what Life is actually the one doing.
Deer trying to flip the tables on him.
Yeah.
Do you see the gateway after Nexus for Deer? That is one of the components for going for a very fast, aggressive build as well. You want to get that tech out. You want to get those gateways up and running with the Warp Gate research, get out a bunch of units, and then go for the attack. Allows you to get that robotics facility as well for the Immortals a bit later.
I like the placement, by the way, of all of the buildings of Deer. He's got a half wall here. The top of his mineral line is going to make Ling run by a little bit less annoying. He's also got a pylon at the top of his ramp in case it was like some sort of crazy early pool or some sort of other build like that. He might be able to get a tight wall from the top of his ramp as well. Now we're going to walk down and start working on that secondary ramp, but I like the way he's open here. Against a player like Life, it's a pretty catch-all building placement. Really, really smart. Now with, of course, the spawning pool done, Life's going to go into his triple queens. Going to start droning up mass. We make a few lings to go up at the front, poke, scout a little bit, see if he can find a forge, see what he can see. He's getting his Overlord in position as well. Life's
got to be very happy with what's going on right now. I mean, he's able to get those 3 bases up, 3 queens spawn at about the same time. His economy is going to be booming in no time. He's going to be able to reach a very high number of drones very fast and can transition into a very large army as well for the defense if Deer decides to go for it. But we do see a Stargate on the way.
Yeah. And this scout will be denied. Ooh. I believe. I'm actually going to confirm that. Or it looks like our observer will too. Yep. Did not see that. So the scout there, nice attempt. This is what those first few lings are for. These are lifelings, so sometimes they just sneak past. But good deny there by Deer. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we see just a standard Phoenix opening here. Deer's the type of player to Oracle, but that build has kind of fallen out of popularity recently these days in Korea. Let's see what he decides. Yep, just going to be Phoenix.
Yeah. At least one Phoenix coming out here first can clean up the Overlords. Great for reducing the scouting of the Zerg player, not allowing him to get in. And, of course, this will reveal the tech of Deer. Life will know, of course, that he went for the Stargate back in his base.
Yeah. And what you can do with, of course, the Phoenixes, for those of you who might be newer, is clear up Overlords. Sometimes you make 1 or 2 Phoenixes to clear away for a drop, and that could be really scary as a Zerg, because once he loses those Overlords, he loses vision, he loses a little bit of supply. And this is annoying because you have to remake the Overlords, which costs money. And the Phoenixes could then harass the base. Usually, you can only pick off gas drones are the only drones that get exposed, but you can pick off a few of those sometimes, as well as any stray Overlords that your Zerg opponent has made the mistake of not babysitting very well. Life going into his traditional melee upgrades here. Starting Spore Crawlers right away, pulling the Overlords back. Not quick enough on this one, but he may be able to save it as only 1 Phoenix is here. And here comes that Queen. Second Queen as well, so he will be able to ward those off.
Yep, 2 Phoenixes not quite enough. Usually with this build, if you are going to commit to a certain amount of Phoenixes, it's usually going to be 5. A great number for just coming in, harassing, able to pick off a lot of gas drones, maybe even picking off a Queen as well. You can get it in 1 lift, so it's very easy to just pick them off if they're out of position, away from the Spore Crawler.
Exactly. So this base, he rushes out super early here. This is scouted by Life, but he did deny the scout originally, so Life gets a little bit of a later scout. Sends all the lings he can muster across the map while droning up right now. Deer does get a tight wall up, and that cannon is nearly done with the mothership core here as well. I think he holds this. Yeah, he's got a few sentries here, and even with all these lings from Life, he can't quite force it down. He can try to open these backdoor rocks and be annoying. That's exactly why there's a spotter pylon here.
Yeah.
Or Deer.
I was definitely expecting that out of Life. He's the type of guy to do this, definitely. Just being annoying with those counterattacks. Like we were saying, And just 5 Phoenixes out, like I was saying before, able to snipe Overlords in the main base as well very fast. Just do a lot of damage here. We do see an Infestation pick coming here for Life.
Yeah. And again, drone pickoffs here. Getting 1 or 2 on the gas. Gets all 3, actually. Damages an Overlord for bonus. +1 is done. And Colossi coming out here, so we're not going to see any sort of like crazy, 3-base empty drones, or empty probes, rather, type of push. He keeps making probes.
Deer's looking to take this late. He's not scared of Life. He's like, okay, I can go 3-base against you. I can do whatever I want.
He's scouts, by the way, this Infestation pit, so the Colossus choice he knows is a good one. It's the proper one. Up against Life, you might be running into fast Vipers with that, though. Life is the type to go heavy on the Vipers, but we saw that from him in the past, and it's going to be Swarmos today, which has been the tech of choice for late games EVP in Pro League, in the SSL, in Korea, with GSL starting up very soon as well. We're going to be seeing a little bit more of that, I expect, in this matchup. And this is going to be an awesome match. The last few late game PBZs that we saw were a real treat, and I'm looking forward to this one as well.
Yeah. Really going to be awesome. We see Deer now beginning to move out on the map, just clear up some of the Zerglings in front of his base. He wants to just gain a little bit more room for himself. We do see Life, he's pretty satisfied with what Deer's going for. He's like, oh, I got a lot of time. I'm getting my Swarmos out, no problem. I can just go for my 4th base. I can start to go towards that later game. And adding 3 more Swarm hosts, it looks like. Just going up to 8 right now, that number.
Yeah. Spire comes up now as well. And we see a Warp Prism full of Zealots. This might just be heading to the 4th. We could warp in, say, 4 more Zealots. Might be able to force a cancel on that base. Even if it costs him his Zealots, it's going to be worth it. So be careful with these Phoenixes. There's no concern of Infestors or anything like that, but he doesn't want to lose too many.
All of those Queens of Life? He's got like 6 Queens just roaming around in his base for the defense. Really cool to see.
Here's the Zealots I was talking about. He actually warps in 5, and he's going to just trade them for this base. Should be able to get that. Oh, actually, Life, no cancel. Does he have enough Queens to transfuse? Are they close enough? Doesn't look like it.
They're slowly making their way over, but it's too late. And the Locust will be able to pick off those Zealots, but a great trade here. Taking away the 4th base of the Zerg at this moment. Very, very strong.
Now, Life's Ling was just slightly misplaced. If it were just 1 tiny little millimeter to the south, he would have been able to block that 4th base of Deer. He does scout it with that Ling, but Deer does get that up pretty early here. He's actually opening all sorts of crazy attack patterns here for Zealot harassment later on. He knows this game is going late, man. And he's just getting ready to force this to happen. Blink's finishing. This move out here is not risky either, by the way, because he has a Mothership core. He can always recall if a bunch of Lings or Locusts come in. So he can actually come over here and try to pick off even some drones or Queens and then just recall out.
And what does Life have here? Where are all of those 14 Roaches? Not in position right now. Looks like possibly defending at that 3rd base or 4th base.
Yeah, over here at the 4th.
You see them there. The Warp Prism is still there. Phoenix is over in the main, but he has moved his Swarm hosts very far forward on the map. He's moved them off the creep there. Just trying to get those Locusts as close as possible to Deer's 3rd base. Start putting on that pressure, forcing Deer to come back home with his Colossi to defend against this.
Yeah, Deer has such a tiny army. He has those 3 Colossi that was in that mix in a few centuries, and that's basically it. He now has another additional Colossus, but Life realizes this. He's like, your army is tiny. He's actually just trying to burst this Nexus down, and he almost gets it.
Oh my god, 148 health.
The next wave will get it. If he is able to connect with that Nexus, he has to deny this.
Well, he has moved his Swarm host back in a more defensive position here. Just trying to go for 1 big swell if possible.
Ooh.
Or get that down, and this is big. Catches 3 Queens for just 2 force fields.
Yeah, very nicely done. Queen's so important in the late game in this matchup for, just spreading creep, transfuses on Corruptors, for example, in the late game, which you see being made now. Storm's done. Charge is, getting closer. A few Zealots get traded down here. It'd be a bit painful, but he's actually just freeing up supply to do a little bit more harassment down here. And also just tanking a little bit. Few Lings come in with Roaches to support them in the back. He will kill this Nexus.
Yep, this is what Life is all about, the counterattacks. He knows that Deer's army is out on the map. He's defending with the Locust. He's pushing it back, not allowing him to attack Life, but he's going to backstab you at the same time, coming at that 3rd base, finish off the damage he's done, and get annoying on this high ground. Try to come in here at the 4th base as well. Start picking off some cannons.
Huge warping of Zealots here means no warpings to defend the 4th base, though. And he only has a few cannons over there. Let's see what Life can get done. Meanwhile, Deer is really putting on this direct pressure. We might see him do a recall with some of his army back to defend that. It looks like he's just only been able to get the cannons. One Zealot Warp, and he doesn't have a lot of resources right now. That Nexus is very exposed. Okay, yeah, there's the recall. It decides to bring his whole army back, wipe those roaches. And Life, actually, with all this harassment, has not been able to build up a huge bank. He's just constantly remaxing with these Corruptors, which actually, funny as it is, end up running into some Phoenixes. They're not paying attention, eating some damage there, but... You know, I like how Deer is posturing on this map. He's very brave. He's not afraid of Life's counterattacks.
Yeah, it's really cool to see a Protoss player just really go head-to-head with Life in this kind of game, just showing that he is confident enough in his prowess in the late game in the PvZ matchup. Do see Life now moving his Swarmos over to this third base. He knows he has to defend against the Protoss once again, coming out onto the creep.
I'm kind of scared for Life now that we have this Dark Shrine, too, because he's been really skimping on those static defenses at most of his bases. That's why this damage has been getting done so much. He does have one Spore at his fourth, but DTs could do a real number on the economy of Life. Archon's up here at the front. We're going to tank a lot of damage and try to get some burst on those Corruptors, but he's not quite able to do what he wants there. The Swarmos just do so well against Archons. One Archon does fall, and he's actually getting really brave with these two at the front. He wants to get on top of those Swarmos if he can.
Trying to come in here and do damage with the Corruptors at the same time, but huge storms and a huge swell of Stalkers in the back here for
Just way too
Deer.
many Stalkers. He's actually just going to wipe these Corruptors, and that means that the Colossi can have free reign. He's already moved those Swarmos. Where are those Swarmos going? Perhaps a misclick here by Life, and Deer blinks forward. And now he's clearing up that static defense. Don't forget, you know, there's a Warp Prism nearby. He can start to harass with that. He's got a Dark Shrine. A ton of Roaches being made here to try to remax. But against this much AoE and no answer for the AoE, the Stalkers do well against this. Infestors are on the retreat. He's trying to get a few more of those out. Looks like he lost his Observers. He made two more just now. Okay, one's
coming over here. He needs to get rid of these Swarmos right now. They're definitely going to push him off. Like you were saying, huge storms coming in, a lot of AoE, but only 3 Colossi in the mix right now. But again, more Warpins coming in the back for Deer.
Yeah, the Roaches are spawning to die, and this comp is designed to beat, you know, the comp that Life wants to build here needs Corruptors, because without them, the Colossi can beat basically anything on the ground, especially when he's got Storms to support. So small numbers of Roaches streaming out little by little at these hatcheries that are under siege are not going to be enough. These Corruptors are lagging behind. They're not all being microed together, and they're kind of spawning to die. We're doing a miss micro by Deer as well to lose a few of those Stalkers, but he's in such an incredible position. He's up 70 supply here. He's controlling these hatcheries. He's killing units more and more as they spawn. Corruptors coming out in small numbers as well, just not quite enough to finish off these Colossi. GG.
He was essentially, Deer had gotten into such a good position while Life was trying to transition into Hive, where he was like on top of the production of Life. He was on top of 2 hatcheries at the same time. There were Roaches popping out of different hatcheries and not grouping up, not able to defend. Meanwhile, there were like 10 gateways back at the base of Deer, just a constant swell of Stalkers coming in to support. Even as he lost his Colossi, he still had so many storms to live against the Swarmos for long enough to do enough damage and eventually take that game. A really nice tempo play.
He had no fear. He had no fear whatsoever. Careful, patient, pokes, moves out with his Colossi, attacking the 4th base constantly. He kills that once, continues to harass that. Life never responded to that Warp Prism. Had his static defense late. He did kill a Nexus, but Deer had that 4th base up so